So we know about that Modern Warfare DLC that's meant to be released but still hasn't released at this point. That long rumored potential Season 7 or whatever it was supposed to be before it eventually just got drip fed to us in various different locations. But what if I told you it goes a lot deeper than just soap and a few weapons? That there's actually a bunch of content that never saw the light of day in Modern Warfare. So today we're going to examine that unreleased content within Modern Warfare, see if it is truly just cut content, or if maybe there's something a little further behind it that maybe releases it at some point. As we go along, let me know your thoughts down below. Would you guys like to see more DLC for Modern Warfare? If so, what would you like to see? Maps, operators, weapons, whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts down below. As well, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing running all things Modern Warfare and anything COD related, as we're on that road to 500,000 subscribers. So if you guys would like to stay up to date with everything and join the community, I'd love to have you. And finally, my friends over at Gamer Advantage are releasing their brand new Horizon frames. If you guys would like to learn more, check the link in the description below for their launch coming up in the next couple of days. That said, let's jump right into it. So it's no surprise that we have those things like soap, the CX-9, the RAAL LMG, still up on the horizon at some point. Those and other items like Al-Rob airbase, drainage, the things like that that need to be reintroduced after being removed from the game files for ages. This content we thought was going to be part of like Season 7 introduced into Modern Warfare. Perhaps something to tide over players if a global delay was on Black Ops Cold War, if that was necessary, or just to give something to players who didn't really quite want to make that jump away from Modern Warfare when Cold War was released. We don't have any more updated information on those, and we won't know much until they likely drop out of nowhere, as those other items like the Psychov pistol, like Sparks and Killhouse have, if those are any indication. But what's interesting is that these are just the drop of the many items that were never released. These ones, though, look to be happening, while these other ones we'll talk about don't really seem to be coming. Because they've been in the game files for so long and they've never been released, it seems we can now confidently classify this as cut content. But it's strange because there's so much of it. In April of 2021, a year and a half after the launch of Modern Warfare, the game currently boasts 57 multiplayer maps across the modes of gunfight, traditional 6v6, 10v10, and ground war upwards of 32v32. But believe it or not, there's still a handful of maps that we had never seen across all this time. This dates back to all the way around launch, about a week after the launch of Modern Warfare in 2019, when a Reddit user named Senesalo, if you've been around the channel for a long time, you may recall that name. He was a big data miner at the time, did a lot of digging throughout the game files. He ended up posting a thread entitled 38 upcoming multiplayer maps in Modern Warfare, which surprisingly has a lot of them on here that never made it to the light of day, even a year and a half later. That list started out with some 2v2 gunfight maps of Cage, Cargo, Hook, Exclusion Zone, and Shoot House. Though Cage was codenamed for Atrium, Cargo was the code name and dev name for, well, Cargo from Season 1, Shoot House was Shoot House 2v2, and the only two unaccounted for in that 2v2 list were Hook and Exclusion Zone. Though Hook, there's nothing known about this. Exclusion Zone, on the other hand, had an associated image with it that showcased the Pripyat Ferris wheel and the junkyard this map likely took place on. What's interesting, though, is this plays directly into lore for Modern Warfare, but also loosely resembles what we see in an existing gunfight map of Trench. So it's possible this could have been a pivot point in the initial art direction to then utilize the existing outskirts or features of the connected in the distance map of Raid, but those two were never really accounted for. Other than that, we of course had maps in the 6v6 and 10v10 format in a much larger listing of a knee attack, crash, dam, Kravnik farmland, gulag, hospital, layover, lowline, lumber, Milishev, millbase, oasis, port, prison, Rivna, shipment day and night, slums, stadium, subbase, super, Urzikstan, Torres, transit, TV station, Farida, Rust, takedown, and borderline. Now, a lot of these are absolutely things that are accounted for, even if they may not necessarily seem like it. Some maps were maps that just eventually came later on down the line, such as Crash, that was introduced within Season 1 of Modern Warfare. Then you had portions of the Warzone map that maybe became ground war maps, like Kravnik Farmland, as well as Port. Then you had portions of the Warzone map that became Warzone Rumble maps, because some of these may seem like they could have been from Warzone, but we never saw them really introduced in the way of ground war. But that accounts for things like Hospital and Dam, where was an MP map, but on the Warzone side of things. Then we had MP maps that came in different names. So the best one that I can think of here is Milishev, that being MP_Milishev. That actually turned into the Tank Factory that came in, I think, Season 6 or something like that. But the final pieces of this discussion and this list really come down to items that were actually genuinely never seen or accounted for. Those being Lowline, Oasis, Rivna, Subbase, Urzikstan, Torres, Farida, Takedown, and Borderline. Now, a lot of these are actually pretty cool. One of the ones that is the most surprising to me is that of Farida. This was actually in the launch trailer for Modern Warfare and was one of those things that had a lot of rumors around it. It was said to be coming in Season 1, Season 2, and then later on down the line when it was never actually released, it was said that the developers saw feedback from the community. They thought this wasn't going to fit the game in the reception they were hoping for, so they were reworking it, but then it never came out. Then you had things like Takedown, which centers around a large helipad and kind of reminds me a little bit of High Rise from Modern Warfare 2. Borderline looked to be something from the outskirts of a city in a more urban area, but these things never ended up coming to the game. Some of them having some concept art and menu art associated with them, but just never introduced here. But what's crazier still is that while that's a lot of maps, we actually had a bunch of operators that still could have been seen throughout not only Modern Warfare's main year of support, but maybe even post-launch of Black Ops Cold War if they wanted to. Because once again, Senesalo ended up about a week and a half later from that initial post talking about the data mines of the maps that were upcoming and some that never came. He ended up putting up another post talking about 13 upcoming operators in Modern Warfare, to which a bunch of those ended up coming true. We ended up seeing that Ghost was introduced there, Iskra was introduced there, Farah was introduced there, Mara was introduced there. A bunch of these ended up getting introduced into the game, but there were still a bunch that did not. The one that's probably the most prominent here was that of an operator based off of Marshawn Lynch. He and a handful of other operators never ended up coming into the game and seemingly didn't have any progressive builds to them, but just instead had associated images for, say, operator headshots that never really came to be. So whether or not he ended up turning into the art direction and the catalyst to introduce another operator in some regard, we don't know, but he and a handful of others were in the game files and were just likely cut content. So what does this then lead to? Is this actually all 100% never coming to Modern Warfare? Well, I think the larger possibility is yes, that's the case. This is just cut content that never quite made it to the light of day. That happens with every single game, though it is kind of weird that there are some larger pieces here of so many maps and integral operators here to it that never really saw a public build of the game. But there also are rumors that maybe could point to this, again, being released at some point, just not within the main year of content support. There are, of course, those rumors of World War II Vanguard being pushed back or canceled altogether, to which one of the rumors is that Modern Warfare would get a hefty dose of new content to subsidize the losses here for that. That could be when some of this comes in. Maybe it's saved for Modern Warfare 2 in 2022, and this was kind of just the base workings of what was planned, but then never eventually came. That kind of stuff happens all the time. One of the ones that's probably the most prominent within Call of Duty history is the Zombies map from Black Ops 1, Kino der Toten. That was actually meant to be a DLC map within World at War, but then the development time on that got cut short, and then we ended up seeing that Der Riese was the last map introduced within World at War, and then Kino der Toten became a launch map for Black Ops 1. Very well could be a situation like that where more are introduced with Modern Warfare 2, the sequel to Modern Warfare 2019 here come next year, but we just don't know at the moment, though it is kind of fascinating, I think, to take a look back and see how much actually was planned but never came to the fans of the game. So that said, I want to take a look back here and just examine this kind of stuff and see maybe what happened with it. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you guys want to see some of these maps here introduced at a future point? Which ones would sound the coolest to you? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so I'm a single thing running all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, Call of Duty 2021, whatever it is, anything relating to COD, we'll keep you up to date. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to hit that subscribe button. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practice on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.